Hello and welcome to Fantastic Brushes and When to Use Them. My name is Driss, and in this series we'll be going over each brush you can find in ZBrush Core and ZBrush to tell you when and a bit of how you should use each brush. When you boot up ZBrush or ZBrush Core, for the first time you'll be greeted to the standard brush. For those who wonder, we'll be using ZBrush Core for the beginning of this series, but everything you learn when you get ZBrush Core will work just fine inside of ZBrush, so you're not wasting your time if you're learning ZBrush Core, and if you're not wasting your time if you're looking at this video and you're using ZBrush. So let's get back to the standard brush. The standard brush is the brush you're greeted to every time, unless you change something, every time you boot up ZBrush. Here in ZBrush Core, the standard brush is a sculpting brush and behaves like you expect. When you lay down a stroke, it pushes the vertices around, and when you use Alt, use the alternate deformation, it pushes down. And using this, you can sculpt your model. Now, I never use the standard brush. Why? Well, I use it not for sculpting. I find the standard brush to be a bit lumpy and not very interesting to work with. It doesn't work very nice across surfaces. It's not very nice to fill in some gaps. It's a bit finicky. It's great for making broad strokes and all, but I never use it for sculpting. Usually. Where the standard brush is great, it's my go-to brush for making changes. It's my go-to brush to make tweaks. I usually go to the standard brush. Back in the day when the paint brush wasn't available, I would turn off Z-Add, turn on RGB, and standard brush would become my paintbrush. Now there's a paintbrush available, so that's not something I do anymore, but it's something I would used to do. But now if I need to do something specific, this is the brush I will use to tweak. I would leave all the other brushes to their defaults, or just make some changes if I need to. But if I need to make something very specific, I would use the standard brush. If I need to turn this sphere into a starry-eyed emoji, I would use the standard brush. Increase our resolution. So for every sculpting brush, you can always go into your stroke palette and then select different kinds of strokes. So we're going to choose drag rectangle. We're going to pick an alpha, and then we are going to lay down our starry-eyed emoji. Now you can see that the star is a bit soft on the edge. That's due to the focal shift that we can tweak and make it -100, so it's a very, very hard brush. And now we have a much cleaner star. So if I need to do something, if I need to lay out an alpha on my model, I would use the standard brush. If I need to make a specific brush, let's say if I wanted to add some skin pores to my model, I would go to the standard brush, pick my standard brush, I would select spray, and then I will pick something like this Alpha 23, for instance, and then I would go over my surface and spraying everywhere, I would lay down my skin pores. So yes, the standard brush as a sculpting tool, it's not my go-to. You can definitely work with the standard brush. I find it a bit lumpy, but you can produce some effects. If you wanted to make a rough skin eyebrow, you could do an effect. Freehand, gonna put our focal shift back to the default. You can definitely sculpt using the standard brush, but on its default settings, I would rather use something else like the clay brush. We'll talk about that in another video in the series. But as a standard tool, it works okay if you need to make some if you're making a hand. Let's say this is a hand, you're sculpting a fist and you need to add some fingers. The symmetry, if you need to add a finger and another finger and another one, for that kind of sausage shape, the standard brush works very well, but usually I don't find it useful enough. I don't like the way it works. It bulges too much, but it's it's my go-to brush for making tweaks. If I need to make something very specific and it's a dumpster brush, I won't use it for sculpting later on. So I can always use the other tools to sculpt and use this one to modify. So I can just make it, if I need to make a detail on my model, a detail that I will reproduce a bunch of times, I would make this brush, then would tweak it to the shape I want, make the settings I need, and then for sculpting I would go back to another brush. But for adding details, for making effects like skin pores, wrinkles, working with textures, if I need to slap on a texture, if I need to draw, if I need to draw something very specific for some reason, I would go and use the standard brush. So here we go. First video, short video on the standard brush. Use it to experiment, to try things, to use alphas, effects, and so on. Not so much for sculpting. You can definitely use it for sculpting, but I would choose another brush for that purpose. It's the brush you want to experiment with. It's the fun brush, not really the sculpting brush, and this is why you should use it to use it when you need to do something specific. Don't use it necessarily as your sculpting brush. If you're using ZBrush for the first time, since it's the brush that will pop up, the default brush you will have when you launch the software and you're trying to figure out how sculpting works, since it's there, you will start using that brush immediately. I would advise using something else, but we'll see that in another video. For now, ZBrush, the standard brush, great for experimenting, great for making effects, not really great for making sculpt. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoy it. Like, share, comment if you want to see more, if you want to refine this this concept. Let's work together, make something good, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.